Barry Rubin with another inspired musical choice to bring us in. Thank you, Barry.
What was that?
I don't know, but I loved it.
You did? Okay. We can't identify the band. Can anybody in the comments identify the song?
Yeah, we'll leave that to people. Hey, so welcome everybody to another Republican Voters Against Trump live stream. Thank you for joining us. I am joined today by my Republican Voters Against Trump colleague, Tim Miller, and this other guy that neither of us know. He runs a publication. What is it called?
It begins with a D.
Yeah. No, please welcome our very good friend, Jonathan V. Last.
Very good.
He may be my best friend. He might be my best friend. It gets a little tough when there's three of us. It starts to feel a little awkward. I don't like to talk about it in front of Tim, but yes, we're all very close friends. JVL, thanks for being here today. I love your publication, The Bulwark. It is one of my favorites. It's indispensable journalism in this age. You are one of the main genius drivers behind it. I can't live without your political analysis, which amazingly comes at the fastest pace. Like, you are the first person every single time there is a major debate or anything else, you're the first person to get something up. So I just read it, immediately. So we're going to talk about the debate today because I want to get your take on everything. But I want to start with something that I feel like there's a lot of people we've been examining. We talked a lot about white supremacy in terms of the debate. Talked a lot about the Biden, Trump's, callousness towards Beau Biden. But there was an underappreciated moment, I thought, in the debate where Donald Trump starts yelling at Joe Biden and saying, "You went to the University of Delaware and you were the last in the class and you don't use the word smart with me." And it was this really weird exchange. But I think that what maybe we didn't, it just lost in everything else is like, was Donald Trump calling people who go to state schools dumb? Is that a thing that happened in the debate?
No. So this is one of the things you notice about Trump if you watch him for more than 5 minutes is that he's a professional wrestling character. And so everything he does is a work. Everything, whenever he's angry at somebody, it's always performative angriness. Whenever he's happy, it's performative happiness.
That's for brown women. He's generally angry at them.
That "don't you dare call me stupid" was the first time I've ever seen genuine emotion from him. And I had not realized that he had a real complex around the idea of intelligence. I thought the stable genius stuff was just part of his shtick and part of the act. And it turns out that he's really, really sensitive about people thinking that he's stupid, which is funny because, he's not smart. So
yeah, it's tough to be him to go through life then. Tim, let's just talk about what our favorite. It was a great debate, lots of highlights. Lots of things that have informed the American public, gave us all a stark ability to make a choice in the election. So what were your favorite moments?
It was stark. I guess stark would be the one word in that intro I would agree with. It was definitely stark, the difference. I think a lot of our friends who are Republican voters for Trump rather than Republican voters against Trump tried to make it seem as if there was this kind of debate between two doddering candidates who both yelled at each other the whole time, like Grandpa Simpson yelling at a cloud, and that it was just terrible on both sides. Kind of like there were very fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville rally. And that's just not really what happened. I think that Joe Biden had a couple of really strong moments. I think particularly talking to real voters about COVID. I think he was talking straight to the camera to a lot of the Republican voters against Trump we've heard from, who actually thought that they were getting a businessman, who thought that they were getting this guy who'd have a plan to solve big problems. And it turned out they were getting a pro wrestling character, as JBL said. And so when Biden talked to him and said, "Come on, man, why aren't you bringing people together to the White House? Where's your plan to solve this? Why are you just in a in a golf bunker. We've heard that a lot from people who voted for him last time. And so I thought those straight to camera moments for Biden were particularly his strong suits. He had a couple funny little one-liners in there. And then I would say the opposite of my favorite moment was basically the last 15 minutes when Donald Trump, people have talked about this, so I'm always wary to be like, nobody's talking about this. But I think it's absolutely the fact that we do not have wall-to-wall coverage over the fact that the President of the United States spent the last 10 minutes of the debate discussing how there was a coup attempt against him in 2016 and how we cannot trust the ballots this time in 2020 is a deeply alarming, unprecedented, unimaginable action by somebody who's supposed to be the leader of the free world. And I thought that Biden, again, there's a stark would be an understatement contrast there.
Yeah, JVL, what about you? What stood out to you? Obviously, I'm joking when I say that it was a deeply informative debate. It was not that. But in terms of what just, what you took away from it, such as it were, what stood out to you?
Well, it was revealing. I mean, I think it is hard to have come into that debate. Let's pretend you're a super low information voter and you just don't know what to think about these two guys, and politics is so nasty, and I just try not to pay attention until the very last bit before we get to the election. And you show up not having paid attention to like the coronavirus briefings or the endless embarrassments of the Trump show over the last 3.5 years. And you see that, and I just think you no longer have any possible reason to not understand who and what Donald Trump is. And I just think the mask is off in ways that even the lowest of low information voters really can't not see. And to me, the question will be, all the polling on this has been very, very bad for Trump over the last 48 hours or so. An NBC poll that's done entirely post-debate just dropped like an hour ago and had Biden plus 13 nationally. I am doubtful that those polls are going to hold. I think Biden is likely to get a little bump, maybe probably 1 or 2 points in the polling average over the next week or so, and then it'll dissipate because that's what happens on debates. But, when you just look at it, he is who he is. And the people who are undecided at this point, I just don't know how to help them.
JBL, the mask was not just off for low information voters. The mask finally came off for some very high information people, like Fox News correspondent John Roberts, who earlier today showed, I think, extreme frustration with the White House and with the president over why they can't just say white supremacists are bad. And there's this whole little game, this doublespeak game going on with Donald Trump and with Kayleigh McEnany and with their friends in the conservative media. They're like, well, he said sure. He said sure. What more do you want? He said sure. He said sure 3 times. And it's like, this is a person who calls all of us human scum, who called Joe Scarborough a psycho and a murderer, who led rallies about sending black women back to Africa who are American citizens. And then when asked about white supremacists, if they're bad, he's like, sure. And they think that that's enough. And I think that even John Roberts, who's been, and Fox, have obviously been friendly to the president, expressed their frustration today. It's just like, they are not listening. Like Trump has now ensconced himself into a bubble that is very thick and very online. And kind of in this MAGA populist bubble, and basically that explained his whole debate performance.
Well, this happened after Charlottesville too. So you remember that when Charlottesville happened, and he did his very fine people, we went into 72 hours of firestorm with people saying, the first line of defense was, no, of course he did condemn them. He did condemn them, and then as people in the administration started saying, boy, this is making me a little bit uncomfortable. And there was pushback, and Trump doubled down because of the pushback. And that's where they are now. And eventually, I think on Tuesday, Mike Pence will get this exact question, and he will say, of course, the president condemns white supremacy. And in fact, the president has condemned white supremacy a number of times. And he'll tick off like 2 speeches that Trump gave in 2017, after some white supremacist
written speeches that sound nothing like him. He's like, let me read you this thing that, the State Department spokesperson wrote for him 3 years ago.
Right. And so what they'll do is they'll say, look, we've said all of the things. And so in this particular moment, we want you to give us credit for these things we said over here. And then he knows that the actual white supremacist types all give him credit for these things over here because they know what he really means. And, it's great.
Yeah. As great as me and JVL's take is on this, you spent an hour with normals yesterday. What they think?
Well, here, just before we move on to that, did you guys see that Kayleigh McEnany said today? So, all we want from Donald Trump is to say, white supremacists are bad, nice and clearly. He can't do that. And yet, from the podium, what Kayleigh said is, Donald Trump has condemned white supremacy more than any other president in history. Now, the chasm between, we don't need him to, obviously that's a lie, but it's funny how big the lie has to be and how much space they seem to want to put between sure and the truth and then the lie, when all she really has to do is be of course the president condemns white supremacy, whatever Mike Pence will probably get right, as JVL points out. Anyway, just a funny note, and I think that may be part of the reason that John Roberts was like, what, don't make me, you're making me take crazy pills here. It was good to see him do that, because sometimes you start to feel when people are gaslighting you all the time, you start to be like, I'm right about this. I know what I saw. And so sometimes when somebody comes out and tells the truth, right, which is really the theme of Republican voters against Trump is, and all of these Trump officials who come out and they say, yeah, he's a lunatic internally. He absolutely says horrible things about people. He's undermining the COVID task force. It just is good in the sense that it's yeah, I'm not crazy. I do not have Trump derangement syndrome. I am seeing things clearly, and other people keep trying to gaslight me into thinking that this is not what it is.
Just really quick on that point, when I saw the first tweet from the conservative media saying that he did actually condemn it, after I'd watched it, I did. I had one moment where I was like, am I wrong? Am I the wrong one here? And I went and rewatched the video, and I started laughing hysterically. And it's just there's no imaginary way where you can watch the video and not take it as Trump giving an attaboy to the Proud Boys.
The first part of the John Roberts tirade, though, it's interesting because he's on air and he's pushing back against Fox viewers on Twitter.
Right.
And he says that the problem is the audience. His audience is after him for this, and this just shows this has been true. I think the extent to which this has been revealed over the last 4 years is amazing to me, which is that the people are the problem, right? And because this is what the people, broadly speaking, within the Republican Party want. This Trump stuff, this gaslighting, this not pussyfooting around the white supremacy stuff, this is what a very non-trivial chunk of the Republican Party wants. And we could argue over whether it's 55% or 25%, but it's a big, big number, and it's not 2%.
Honestly, I think this is why some of our Republican voters against Trump videos, and if for those of you who've submitted them, who are watching, are so powerful. Because a lot of people were part of this, and they feel like they're going crazy. Because it isn't just Trump. It's the people around them in their lives who are parroting this stuff. And they're like, this isn't what I thought I signed up for. And I think that's why when you see a lot of these videos, sometimes they're so gut-wrenching, because they feel like part therapy, part coming out admission, of something that they haven't been able to say in their friend group. And I think that's what's been so cool about it, because I agree with you. It's not just, it's bottom up and top down. It's happening in their communities.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add to I'm not disagreeing with JVL about the part that a lot of the problem is with what viewers want, but I will say there's this doom loop, right? There's a symbiotic relationship between the right-wing media ecosystem and those viewers where, Tucker feeds them something that's pretty extreme, and then they get more wound up in extreme, and then so the Fox News needs to keep feeding them things that are more extreme to keep them satisfied, and then we wonder why everybody's totally off the rails. And so I don't think that it's just, hey, there's this audience that demands it. It has been ginned up on purpose over time.
Why do my viewers not trust the media? Like the person that spends 24 hours a day condemning the media for everything. I don't know. Who can predict, John? Why do you think that is?
There is a sort of heroin addiction chasing the dragon aspect to this, which is, it starts out where you get the frisson by talking about, textualism and originalism in regards to con law. And then pretty soon you're pushing back against, cancel culture on college campuses and the vagina monologues. And then that's not enough anymore. Then you need Alex Jones. And, you're just like doing more and doing more and doing more to get the same high. And the end of this is Q, right? We are, as God is my witness, I'm telling you right now, that 4 years from now, Q will be the litmus test to show that you are a real true believer in the cause. You will have to be at least Q friendly.
I hope that's
funny,
not true.
You just made another observation that made me think of something. The right wing media ecosystem is very mad at Chris Wallace, right?
Very mad.
The fault. Donald Trump didn't do a bad job. Chris Wallace, he had to debate not one person, but two people. And how dare he ask a question of Donald Trump that, it's so funny. The idea that is like a hard question, that it was like a mean question to ask Donald Trump to condemn white supremacy, when in fact it was like a massive softball that could never be missed by anybody. It's like, what the easiest thing to do in the world is? Condemn Nazis.
Nazis are bad.
Nazis are bad.
Political winner.
This is like when the Barstool guy was interviewing Trump, and he's like totally in the bag for him and trying to help out Mr. Trump. And he's like, look, I'm like you. I didn't love the Kaepernick kneeling thing at the start, but now we've got these protests and George Floyd and everything that's happening. I've kind of been like, I guess kneeling is better than looting, right, Mr. President? It's like right on a tee for him to be like, yeah, I guess it's okay. And Trump's like, no protest is allowed. We're going to gas everybody outside the White House if they're protesting. It's like the easier ones sometimes are more revealing.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing: Donald Trump didn't even get asked about the fact that, like the number of things that he could be asked about. Like,
correct.
Do you think it's strange that there are so many QAnon conspiracy theorists who've joined your party, and what do you think of them? Like, that's a tough one for the president to answer. He didn't even get at like the number of things he could have been asked that are way harder than like, hey, you feel like condemning white supremacy today? Are legion. Anyway, sorry. Now I'm just going on. Tim, you asked me a very nice segue question 10 minutes ago that I'm gonna jump in and start to answer. So I've got a piece up on JBL's esteemed website, thebulwark.com, that everybody should go read. And it is a rundown of a focus group I did last night with college-educated women who voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And they all live in swing states. Now, this is a group, so I've done 100 hours of these focus groups since 2018. I've been talking to a lot of Trump voters, a lot of reluctant Trump voters. But this is the first group. I met them a few weeks ago now. And when I was talking to them, it was interesting. They were an interesting group because there was one person who was for Biden. There was one person who was for Trump. And then everybody else was undecided. And so there's 9 total. So there were 7 very undecided voters who all voted for Trump in 16. And so I asked them if they would mind, let's keep talking. And so I checked in with them after the Supreme Court decision, which interestingly at the time they were very upset with Donald Trump for not committing to a peaceful transition of power. Another thing he neglected to do that seems quite easy in the debate. But I also checked in with them again last night to find out, what did you think about that debate? And I will say as a top line that they felt like what Donald Trump did, the bullying, the constant interrupting, the unwillingness to condemn white supremacists, that while it didn't give them what they needed for...
Did we lose Sarah, or did Sarah lose me?
I think we lost Sarah.
Okay, well, I've got great news, JVL.
Yeah?
I watched the focus group as well. I didn't write about it. I was a lurker. I was, doing other things, sending mean tweets to people and such. But I was mostly paying attention, not with the same focus that Sarah did. And the thing to me that was, I don't know what Sarah's main takeaway was going to be, so I won't put it in her mouth. I will give you what my main takeaway is, and I would like to hear what you think about this, because it might leave you in a deep, dark despair. And that is that this group of 10 women who are in swing states who hadn't yet decided who they're going to vote for, if anything, after the debate, they became less decided. And there is this, I think, sense out there that, hey, Sarah, I just took over since I was lurking in the focus group. There's this sense out there that there are people that aren't persuadable, right? That this election is already baked, and that people already have made up their mind. And when you listen to these women, like, that is just not the case. It's just not the case in a ways that was like a little bit dispiriting kind of at times. So like somebody who had been leaning towards being for Biden, like watched the debate and they thought, ugh, I just hate both these people. Maybe I won't vote. And somebody who had been for Trump watched the debate and was like, I hate him so much. Like, how can I vote for him? And I think that like wearing an RVAT hat, it's important for people to remember that. And like the fact that these sort of testimonial things and such do matter. Well, I mean, what, like, to you, like, how do you respond to that? That's gonna send you into a despair to see that, to learn this. The people are yet undecided at this late stage.
You know, it's like antimatter. You know, I don't understand exactly how antimatter works. I cannot explain to you what exactly antimatter is, but I do know that it exists. I know that it's a thing out there in the physical universe. And I think undecided voters are basically like that for me. I don't understand how anybody could be undecided at this point at all. But they are there. You see them. I guess my question is, though, is somebody who is like that, are they truly undecided, or is their habit of mind such that they will only decide at the last minute and their decision will be based on the last input? You know, are they last in, first out?
I think that there are a couple things happening. I think that there are some people who have kind of are deciding between voting for one person and nobody. You know, so they're undecided in that sense. Like, they're not going to flip. Like, they are soft Trump voters, but they hate him. And so, like, maybe they'll check the box. Maybe they'll just decide they can't do it. There are people that are like that with Biden. What I hear a lot about Biden, and I think what frustrated a lot of the women in this focus group was they want a reason to be for Biden. I suspect most of these people will be for Biden in the end, right? But, like, they just haven't got there yet. Like, they haven't been given a reason to be for him. And he didn't really give it to him. He had a couple of good moments, I think, during the debate, but because of Trump's badgering and I think because of a few mistakes on his own regard, he didn't really seal the deal with a lot of these people. And then I do think there's another group that is the scariest group, which is just going to decide based on the last input that they receive. And Donald Trump in 2016 won a landslide with this group. Like, I remember I was at this stupid panel with a stupid Trump pollster who I won't name, and he pulled me aside after the panel, and he's like, I got to tell you, I'm only at day 2 of this weekend panel, but like, Trump is getting this huge surge this last weekend. Like, I think it could be, I'm not sure, but I think it could be real. And he ended up being right. It was real. Like, there was a late break to him. And so that's the most disturbing part. I can't get inside. You're more of a astute analyzer of the human mind than me. So maybe you could get inside what that is.
Can you guys see me?
Oh, yeah, Sarah, you're back.
We're ignoring you. We're othering you.
Yeah. Okay. I just got the fastest internet in the world recently. And for some reason, that is the second time I've been kicked off something where I'm just about to deliver my kill shot analysis.
Okay, let's hear it. My very mundane B-list analysis. So let's hear the real deal.
No, you did a good job. You did a good job there. I mean, the main thing I was going to say is that, well, I'm not sure it got as many people over to Biden's camp as it needed to from a, like, I'm now certain to vote for Biden. A bunch of people, it closed the door on Trump for a bunch of these women. It was so I know JBL and I have already talked about this. I know that JBL thinks that like at the last minute that they might like swing back. And here's the thing.
Last minute, in a week, after they have a breakfast burrito, they might swing back. If you have reached this point in your life and you can't tell the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, then what's to say that when you have, like something you really like for dessert, that won't change your mind again? Like, you're like a goldfish. Things just flit in and flit out.
Yeah, that's not right. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the thing that JVL, like, and I just cannot agree on. But here's the thing. It's a fair question that everybody asks, which is, how is it possible that somebody in this moment is still undecided? Okay, fair question. Don't you have all of the inputs you need at this point to make a decision that Donald Trump is unfit to be president? But let me take you inside the life of an actual human being who might be in this position. So let's say somebody is very pro-life, right? They define themselves as a pro-life voter. Their values have always aligned much more with the Republican Party. They look at Joe Biden and think, that guy's really old and I don't like Kamala Harris and I'm really worried about the left and their policies, but I really think Donald Trump is unfit. But like, I've never voted for a Democrat. And nobody in my entire universe, my parents, my friends, everybody in my town, they're all voting for Donald Trump. So that when you swim in a cultural soup of Trumpism and everyone around you is constantly rationalizing, constantly telling you why the Democrats are worse. One of the phrases I hear just constantly in the focus groups is, it's better the poison you know than the poison you don't know. Now, I know this makes JVL crazy. I know it does, because the answer is like,
that's a bad life policy. Who came up with that little aphorism?
Oh my God, I hear it.
It's a horrible aphorism.
Well, I'm just telling you, I'm reporting. I'm an analyst here. I am not somebody.
I'm just wondering, where did they all come up with this thing? Is this like, was this in the Psalms? Was that in Psalms? I don't remember that.
This is the thing about when
it's you talk in Darwin.
When you talk to voters who are part of a specific cohort, one of the things that happens is you hear similar things over and over again because there's a culture that they move in where people say certain things. And so they hear from other people this notion of, hey, I don't know, better the poison you know than the poison you don't know. Now, what if, though, one of the options isn't poison, but in fact, maybe a meal that doesn't taste great, right? Like maybe
it's oatmeal. Maybe it's just a warm bowl of oatmeal. Nothing to get excited about, nothing to kill you.
Yeah, that's right. And so, but I'm just telling you that this is why somebody might be undecided. I'm trying to explain because I get a lot of these comments on Twitter, which is like, how dare people not be, have made up their minds. But anyway, so the point is I do think it closed the door for some of them from Trump, and I don't agree with JVL that they're all just going to swing back. I think that might be true for some who are always looking for an excuse to get there. But there are a bunch of these women who either won't vote, will vote for Biden, or will find their way to a third party.
Can I do a plug now?
Yes.
Because I think I think JVL's deep, dark view of the human soul is partially correct, and that some of these people will randomly swing back. I also think, though, that you're right, and this is when you explain this cultural soup that they're in, the poison soup, which is definitely worse than the oatmeal. But this is the plug about why RVAT matters. I've been hearing from people lately who are like, do you need my video anymore? I mean, you already got 1,000 of them. So like, you guys have done a great job. I don't need to, put myself out there. Like, that is not true. Like, there are voters out there that are still persuadable. They are more likely to respond to people like you and people in their community than they are people like me. I'm definitely more likely there to listen to people like JVL wagging his finger at them. And so, like, hearing from people doing new videos, putting them up on Facebook, hearing new content in that last week or two matters. And like, that's why we'll be running ads up until the last week or two, because this, like, I know that this is hard for people to understand, and some people don't believe this, but literally, if James Comey had not happened, like, Hillary Clinton would have been the president. Like, the dynamics of that race changed in the last 2 weeks of that race. And so I'm not saying this to scare people. I'm saying this to say that continued onslaught of reminding people what they do not like about Donald Trump and reminding people why it's okay to vote for Joe Biden for the next 5 weeks is extremely important. So we do need more videos. We do need you to repost the ones you've already posted, or if you're a Democrat, go find the one you like the best and post. Because like that stuff matters. And while our ads are great, and while everybody else's ads are great, the most persuadable thing is when somebody sees, oh, hey, will you watch this video that that a real authentic person had put up, because it was persuasive to me.
That is a great plug. Let me just though continue with some of the observations from the debate that I thought were interesting. So one of them was that the woman who was definitely going to vote for Trump went back and said, I actually don't think I can vote for him again. So let's just say hypothetically that actually if in some ways he took people who were like reluctant Trump voters nominally in his camp and moved them into the undecided category, that is also good. Now, that is to me a place where like that person could still come home. But I keep trying to get JBL to watch one of these focus groups so he believes me when I say these things. But like, I think Jim, you watched it. There are a bunch of those women who are definitely going to vote for Biden. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. I was saying, I forget it was when you dropped off or not. I think that there's a percentage of these people that are basically deciding between Biden and just sitting it out
and not doing it.
And they're probably going to get there. Like they're basically there. That they really were hoping that the debate was going to make them feel all warm and fuzzy about Joe Biden and that they could just be happy and make their decision with 5 weeks to go. And instead they were like delivered this, like UFC fight disaster, like monstrosity, which made them feel not like kind of icky.
Yeah. But let me just say one thing for these women who I think are actually pretty adroit oftentimes. One of the things that they seemed very well aware of is they thought that what Donald Trump was trying to do with his bullying and the interrupting and the constant steamrolling is they were like, he's trying to make Joe Biden look like he has dementia. He's trying to make Joe Biden look like he's senile. And these are things that I've heard raised from people as concerns about Joe Biden. They come up a lot in the focus group because it's the main thing being fed to them on social media by Trumpers, right? The idea that Joe Biden is non-compos mentis. But actually, a lot of them thought he did better than, so as a result of being, having all that, they thought he did better than they expected. And also, they just felt like Trump was actively trying to get something out of Joe Biden and wouldn't let him talk. And when they wanted to hear what Joe Biden was going to say. And the couple things that broke through then, like the only things that really stuck with people, because so much of it was crosstalk, one was the fact that he would not condemn white supremacists. And then the second thing was the attack on Joe Biden. And now you can say, well, his attack was on Hunter Biden. But when Joe Biden was talking about Beau and Donald Trump says, I don't know Beau, I know Hunter. The women in the group, the one Trump voter, that's the thing that moved her off. And I've got to wonder about how many parents, because when Joe Biden turned and said, I've got a son with an addiction problem and I love him. And, he's fought with this with lots of Americans. That is true. That is a true place where Joe Biden really connects with people. And that was a revolting move by Donald Trump that I think a lot of parents, it was like a deeply unsettling thing. What did you guys think?
It was horrific. And also totally expected, right? I mean, that was the Hunter Biden Burisma stuff was the most predictable play, and Biden handled it very well. I have a question for you, though, Sarah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put us off track, but I have a question about the dementia stuff. Wasn't that debate performance enough to definitively prove that there is no dementia problem, there is no elder, all of that stuff was fiction? Because I mean, I want to presume, based upon the lovely ladies in your focus group, but I would doubt very much that any of them could have done as well as Joe Biden did, standing on a debate stage with Donald Trump screaming at them. And they don't have dementia. So, like, is that now put to bed for them? Or are they still like, well, I got to have proof? And then, the first time he, forgets the state capital of Mississippi, they're going to go, oh, look, see, he doesn't remember the state capital of Mississippi. It must be dementia.
No, I actually thought that the women, and Tim, you can either back me up or correct me, but they were very much like, he doesn't have dementia. He's a guy trying to talk and has a lunatic yelling at him, and has a jerk that constantly interrupts him. Like, they thought that maybe he was shaky. Sometimes he lost his train of thought. They thought he was old. But there was actually one woman in the group who was like, I know people with dementia, like real dementia. They don't sound like that. Like real dementia. Like, she actually was like sort of offended by, and actually totally should be, by the notion that like dementia is a very sad and specific thing that happens to a person. I mean, part of it is that Joe Biden, and this is part of, I don't want to, one of my critiques, I think, of Joe Biden would be that he seems like very loaded for bear, as though he's about to have a substantive discussion with somebody over healthcare. Like, he was just like, I've got all these facts and figures about Obamacare, and we're talking about how many people might get kicked off insurance, and here's how many people it will cover. There was a lot of that in the Dem primary where they all were like arguing over numbers, and it actually got pretty boring because you were like, it was difficult to discern the nuances of their plan. But like, if he thought he was going to come into the debate and Donald Trump was going to engage with him on the substance of healthcare, that wasn't going to happen. And so it seems to me that he probably, and look, it's not great for the American people, but he may need to come in with a few more one-liners and a little less of a need to like explain what percentage of GDP he and Obama built back the economy. You know, like that just was, I think part of it, that's a lot to remember. Like, to say that that guy has dementia, he was recalling a lot more stuff than certainly Donald Trump was.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I do think that people felt like he looked a little shaky, and I think that he got stronger as the debate went on. I think that this dementia thing is like a troll, right? And like for the people on the right, it's a troll, and for the people who are responding to it, it's sort of this stand-in for like, is he in command, right? Did he seem in command? Did he seem strong? And I think that at times he looked a little shaky at the beginning, though overall much better than Donald Trump. And I think Sarah's point is right, where there's also this. Like, debating Donald Trump is a challenge in a lot of ways, in addition to him being an asshole, as I know from having to try to help Jeb prep to be across from him a number of times. But, like, Trump has this lizard brain for, like, things in the MAGA cinematic universe. Like, he will remember, you know, every single statistic about, you know, Hunter Biden's purported contract with Burisma, and yet, you know, could not name a single amendment to the Constitution, right? Like Donald Trump, like doesn't know a lot of things. Like he probably couldn't tell you what was in his tax plan really, besides, the corporate rate. But like he certainly could tell you, what was on Judge Jeanine's show last night. And so I think that like Trump's hitting him with all of this crazy stuff, and like Biden is trying to figure out how to combat that while also remember, the details of the ACA. And I think at times, that presents a challenge for him.
Plus, he's got the earpiece in with the people feeding him information, which that's a lot to do all at once.
What about the contacts? Did you see the contacts that he was wearing? That had, he had these contacts that was projecting. I think that Jen O'Malley Dillon was projecting the answer to him in the contacts.
That is amazing.
Projects out onto the thing in front of him, and that's why he was looking directly into the camera.
I think it wasn't even Joe Biden. That was his life model decoy.
Yeah. Hey, JBL.
Yeah.
Ask me this. This gets asked to me a lot. Somebody has asked this in the chat. So you're somebody who you're more socially conservative than I. I think that's fair.
Okay.
So you have found yourself as somebody who has always associated yourself more as a conservative. How is it that you made the transition to being not just so against Trump that you're willing to vote for Joe Biden, but you're actually kind of a Biden stan? Like you really think Joe Biden is a good choice in this moment. So like, how as a conservative do you make, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a weird case though, because I am, to a large extent culturally conservative, but fiscally I'm a commie. It used to be totally hip for people to say I'm a fiscal conservative but socially liberal. I'm like the weirdo minority that's the opposite of that. And also I've always kind of hated the Republican Party. I mean, I think I voted for 2 Republicans for president lifetime. I'm
not sure you'd make the cut as a Republican voter against Trump then.
No, I probably wouldn't, honestly.
Wait, who did you not vote for? Did you not vote for John Sidney McCain?
I voted for McCain. McCain is one of the 2 Republicans I voted for. Yeah. That's right. You like that? I'm not going to tell you the other because it's more fun to let you guess.
I love how Tim's like mad about this.
Well, I'm trying to think about who it would be. There's not like a credible third party like candidate against Bush or Romney. This is frustrating.
Mm.
What about Bob Dole? You're old enough to have voted for Bob Dole. Did you not vote for Bob Dole?
He voted for Nixon. He's very old. It doesn't look like it in the black.
Did you not vote for Bob Dole, JVL?
We'll discuss that off air.
Wow.
All right.
But the answer is in all of this. Like, things are true. And you should. I've always been kind of disgusted with people who put their faith in political parties, and it should always be party over country, always, always, always. Because
you mean the opposite way? Flip that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right? Yeah, put that around. I'm due for an espresso. It should always be country over party, and people who put their faith in the team because it's the team, I think, are basically just suckers asking to be taken. You know, these guys and gals in electoral politics, they would sell you out for a nickel if they could. And so the best you can do is make like really good faith judgments based upon the information you have as to who's going to be the least bad option. And Trump is like wildly different. There is no other analog of Trump. He's like George Wallace's first term, but worse somehow. You know, like imagine going to a lab and taking the DNA of George Wallace and crossing it with Viktor Orban. And it's just dangerous as hell. And I'm really proud of what you guys, Republican voters against Trump, have done. Because for me, it's easy. For me, it was never a hard thing because I had no attachment to the Republican Party. But for the people who really have been Republicans and who believed in it, to make that jump is brave and awesome. And I've been very proud of all of you. And I say that in a sincere way. Speaking of the normal Republicans, do we have questions from any normies?
Well, so I was one I just asked that was texted to me. And let's see. Well, I need to do a shout out to Julie. She says her hubby and she read the Bulwark out loud to each other and drink. Enlightening and always great. Thanks, Julie. That's so nice.
Where are you guys when you're reading it to each other?
Yeah.
We're drinking when we're writing it too, so it makes sense.
So here's a political one for you, Tinny. What percentage of Republicans do you think are going to vote for Biden? That's a good one. Let's lay our markers down on what we think.
I guess the question is, I need to put this in a little bit of get my head straight, because when I'm thinking about this number with my RVAT hat on and who we're targeting, I'm really like kind of thinking of what percentage of Romney voters are going to vote for a vote against Trump, and some of those people have left the party by now, right, and have re-registered. There's been kind of this registration switch over the last 5 years between suburban former Republicans and working class former Democrats. So I think of current Republican registered voters, I think only about 6% go for Joe Biden, but that's enough for a win.
You know, what's funny about this is actually we're never going to know, because this will be the first year that we just don't have good exit polling, because everything with the mechanics of voting is screwy. Some giant percentage is going to.
Well, there'll be some big studies. So like Sides will do it. There are a couple. When I look at numbers,
it's going to be
2016. I don't look at the exit polls. I mostly look at like the big post studies. Now, some people could lie in those, and people could lie in focus in exit polls, right? There's a little bit, but you know, there were some of the bigger studies of last time I thought were kind of more accurate. And what they showed basically was about 4% of Romney voters last time went for Clinton. And so I think some of those people have left the party, but then the rest who stayed will all be for Biden. And then I think there'll be an additional, probably double. So that gets you to about 6%.
All right. So Tim's betting on 6. JVL, do you have a percentage?
If we're going to go Price is Right style, I'll go below that, and I'll go at 4.
Oh, interesting.
The reason I'll go 4 on that is because I believe turnout for ours is going to be way up. And so that, just as a percentage, will wind up swamping the actual number of former R's who don't vote.
Interesting. So I'm going to go higher, and I think it's going to be 8%.
I should have bid $1.
You're such a Joe-Ride optimist. With
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 8, and I'll tell you why. So number one, I think that one of the things I think about this debate was we all know that the first debate really was going to be the difference maker, I think, right? The people who are watching are going to drop off. Early voting not only is underway some places, but like really kicks off in a lot of places over the course of the next week. So like the next debate is October 15th. Like you're talking 18 days before the election, at which point a significant number of Americans will have already voted. And a lot of the polls and so I think that Donald Trump, I think he hurt himself last night. Like, I think he hurt himself even bigger than we're quite realizing. I think people watched him last night and said, I'm not affirmatively voting for that guy. I think we'll look back and see that he eroded some of his numbers with that. And that a number of, especially women, it was the last straw for them. The other thing, the data points that I have are, look, he keeps tweeting that he's at 96% approval with Republicans. Yay. He's not. It's not true. You go into states like Pennsylvania, there was a poll recently in the crosstabs of that ABC Washington Post poll, had 25% of registered Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia voting for Joe Biden. 25, a quarter of people who are registered Republicans are going to vote for Joe Biden. And look, that's the story of 2020 in many ways, right? It's going to be about the suburbs and this historic political realignment, and it's going to be about women. And I just think that like the chances of there being 8% of people who are Republican voters who end up siding with Biden is like not at all crazy.
So if Tim is right, then Biden is going to win the election by 5% in the popular vote. And if you're right, it's bigger than +8. It is a larger margin than Obama in 2008. So from your lips to God's ears. Yeah,
the one thing I'll say is that the other thing I'll say is that I think political realignment is going both ways. Because I also think that the Trump-Obama voters, many of whom are white working class voters, union households who used to be more affiliated with Democrats, a lot of those are people who are kind of Bernie Trump people now. And so I'm not sure there'll be some that go in that direction too, I think.
If I could just, on that point, if I am rain cloud, as anybody who follows knows, so I'm not predicting this. But if Biden wins an Obama 08 style victory this year, I think it will still be 6%-ish, give or take, Republicans. I think it will be because the people Sarah's talking about went back. And I think that there is, and I've talked about this a little bit, I think the Supreme Court thing could potentially be a final straw on that. That was, if I had one substantive criticism of Biden from the debate, I wish you would have just, and this is, not my personal policy choices, but being a political analyst, I wish you would have been much harder on Trump about appointing a person that's going to get rid of the ACA and Roe v. Wade, regardless of whether or not that actually ends up coming to pass. That is two winning political issues for him. Those are issues that people who left Obama to vote for Trump, both they're pro-choice and pro-Obamacare. They also tend to be anti-globalist, anti-immigrant, and anti-Clinton. So Hillary was a bad match for them in a way that Biden isn't. And I think that some of those people have moved permanently. Sarah's right, yes. But I think that there's an argument that trend line continues, and there's an argument that trend line reverts. And I think if Biden wins a big election, it's going to be because it reverted among those voters more than among Republicans.
Okay, guys, we're actually past time, but I got one last question. It's an up or down question. Lindsey Graham, is he going up or going down in South Carolina? Crazy polls coming out showing dead even with Jamie Harrison. JBL, what do you think?
It's not a slam dunk, but if you're telling me I got to bet $100 one way or the other, I think he loses.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm betting on Lindsey. I'm sorry. Lindsey just grosses me out to my core because he's just been so shameless. But when you look at these polls, what I keep an eye on, if you care about this race, is as we get closer, can Jamie Harrison get to like 48 in polls, right? Can he get his ballot? A lot of these tie polls are like 45, 44. And most of the undecided voters are Republicans in South Carolina. So I just think that the dynamics of South Carolina make it such that it's really tough. And that's why I bet on Lindsey, sadly, but on the rain cloud.
Yeah, but think about the top of the ticket. If we are heading to a real wave election where the bottom just drops out of Trump and Biden is on his way to +8 or more, which is possible. I don't think it's likely necessarily, but that's like a 30% scenario at this point. If that happens, then in all of these supposedly safe R seats like Iowa and South Carolina, they then become coin flips at the Senate level. So
where's your $100 going?
Yeah, I'm going to bet against JVL. He's my best friend, but I'm on Tim's side here. I think places like South Carolina, I think places like South Carolina are still out of reach. Look, but the thing is like South Carolina, a third of the voters in South Carolina are African American. That's real. That's meaningful. And Lindsey Graham is a uniquely terrible candidate these days. I mean, watching him, it is enjoyable to watch him go on TV and just beg and plead for money because he's getting outspent so much. But like, there are times, and he's running behind Donald Trump because in part, right, when you've had like a total personality transplant and you've lied to people about something like the SCOTUS decision, and you're like a weird sycophant all the time, at some point voters stop trusting you. So it's not crazy that he's not doing well. I just think at the end of the day, that's one where like Donald Trump's going to win that state by a lot. He's going to pull Lindsey over with him.
I know we're over, but one interesting thing that would probably be interesting to this audience, because it's a lot of you, I would expect, is that a big difference between 2016 and now is that voters that were Republicans that didn't like Trump, they still voted for the Republicans down ballot. And that is not happening in polls right now. Like the people who were Republicans or conservative independents who are against Trump now have set a pox on all of your houses. And that is really hurting the Joni Ernsts of the world. Lindsey, but I'm worried that, again, there might not be enough of those people. But that's a problem for people like Joni and Tom Tillis, who need those voters to win.
And I just saw a poll out of Iowa that RVAT did that had him dead tied in Iowa.
Biden was up in the RVAT poll.
Oh yeah, it was even maybe up by a point.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see. Great talking to you. I love how many people joined us. It's amazing how many people, come and join these live streams. We love having you. We love the chat. JVL, it was great to see your face. I love to see your T-shirt there. JVL and I talk a lot, but he refuses to be on camera most of the time.
You were in a collared shirt earlier during the test. What happened to that?
I decided to just dress down a little bit more.
Well, I think you look beautiful, and I'll hear nothing else. I'll hear no words against it, because you're my best friend. Tim,
I do it for you.
Tim, you're great too. And thanks, guys. See ya.
Peace out.